tried playing a Blu-ray disc and it worked, and it allowed it to record without any issues. And one bonus about that is it could actually record at 4K. And I even tested out plugging in my 4K Fire Stick and playing something off Netflix. But just to note, I don't suggest buying this device to copy movies and TV shows. That's illegal. Hi guys, today we're going to be taking a look at two 4K capture devices from ClonerAlliance. So details are in the description below, including purchasing links. So I'll be unboxing both the devices, showing what you get in the packaging, and then I'll show you how to set each one up, and we'll test them out and see how they perform. Now the key difference between the two devices is that one is a standalone device, and you'd have to plug in your USB storage into it, and it also allows you to schedule recordings, and this is the ClonerAlliance UHD Pro. And the other device, which is the ClonerAlliance Flint 4K Pro, you'd connect the device to a PC via USB 3 and capture directly onto a PC. So it's reliant on you having a PC, but both devices can capture 4K at 30 frames per second. So you're probably wondering, what's the purpose of these capture devices? So if you're a streamer or content creator, it's an essential, as it lets you capture your gameplay in 4K, and you can connect a microphone so you can hear your voice and gameplay in the recording. But it's not limited to just gaming. You could use it to capture old VHS recordings, for example, or even capture different sources, which I'll test later on. So let's take a look at the ClonerAlliance UHD Pro first. In the packaging, you get a document showing how to get this all set up and connected. That's all in English, and you get a piece of paper with details of their support. You get two power adapters, one for the EU and the other one for the UK. The output on both of these are 5 volts, 2 amps. Both have a DC connection point. Cable quality is different on each one. It's thicker on the UK one. Length of this cable is 86 centimeters, and the EU one is 144 centimeters. You get a USB-A to micro USB cable. Length of this cable is 74 centimeters, and build quality of the cable seems okay. You get a HDMI cable, really good build quality to this one, 120 centimeters long, but the connectors aren't gold plated. You get a remote control, and this one takes 2 AAA batteries. The packaging doesn't provide any batteries. And finally, coming onto the Cloner box, nice compact size to it. You can see their branding and logo over here. 4K recorder Pro, matte black finish all the way around, just glossy on their logo. On the side, you've got nothing here. At the back, you've got a power button, so you can turn it on and off from here. Power input, HDMI out and HDMI in. So for the HDMI in, the maximum input it can handle is 4K at 60 frames per second, and it has built-in 4K pass-through, which means when you've got 4K 60 frames per second going in, you're going to get 4K 60 frames per second coming out. But recording on the box onto the storage will be 4K at 30 frames per second. Coming around further, you've got the connection point to connect it to your PC, and the point for USB where you'd connect in your storage. Here we've got line in, line out microphone. There's a blank bit here. You've got a button to flick between H.265 and H.264. So that's the compression algorithm used when recording. Then you've got a snapshot feature, so you can just take a snapshot of the screen and then record and stop. Underneath we've got a QR code and a serial number and 4 rubber pads to stop it slipping on a surface, and vents underneath. General build quality of the device feels good. Next, let's take a look at what you get in the Flint 4KP Pro packaging. In the packaging, you get a quick start guide. Details are all in English with this, and you get a support card. You get a HDMI cable. Cable quality feels good on this one. Length of the cable is 112 centimeters. Connectors aren't gold plated. You get a USB-A to Type-C cable. Cable quality is really good on this, and length of the cable is 93 centimeters. You get a USB adapter here, Type-C on this end, and it can take in a USB-A connection. And finally, coming on to the Cloner box, so much smaller than the other one, red finish on their top. A brief comparison of size, you can see the Flint box is smaller than the standalone unit. Getting the standalone unit connected up is easy. Power input goes in there, and your HDMI out, which gets connected to your TV, is just over here, and input is any input source. So initially I'll be plugging in my gaming consoles. I've started up the device, and this is what you're initially presented with. In the top left hand corner you can see it saying checking, and that's only because there's no input signal, so I've not turned anything on the input source. Coming down from there, you've got format. So this is the video compression standard it's going to be using. So there's two on here, so H.265 and H.264. Bitrate below there, so there's two settings on this one, low and high. You can adjust that in the menu. And there's nothing plugged in, so it's saying no input. HDMI in, no signal being reported as nothing's turned on. Schedules saying not applicable because no schedule's been set up to record. So you can schedule recordings to run as a one-off or on a regular schedule. Loop recordings off and disk usage is unknown. Now let's go into the menu for this. First of all, you've got record settings. Looking on here, this is where you can adjust the format and the bit rate. Always display record. File size, that can be adjusted. Show the values and that's it. Time watermark, that's off, and loop recording is off. Then we've got schedule settings and you can turn that off, turn it on. Once it's on, there's two different modes, once and every day. And then time range wise, if I go, so 1, 2, and 3, meaning you can only have up to 3 scheduled recordings set up on here. System settings, standard stuff, so you can change the language on here. System time, so once you've set that, it will save it on the unit, and when you start it up again, it should remember that time. You don't have to set it every time. Playback loop, single file, off, full list, and single file again. Reset, so you can reset the device back to factory defaults, and then you've got version details below that. Video playback, going in here, you can play back anything you've recorded, back from here. Photo playback, and this is when you've taken any sort of snaps. So you can take a snapshot of whatever's happening on the screen at the time. Now, if you've turned on an input source, this screen disappears, and to get into the menus, you've just got to hit the menu button on the remote. And again, you're not reliant on having to have the remote there all the time. You can just press the record button directly on the unit. So here's some useful info worth knowing about the device. So if your input resolution is 3840 by 2160 at 60 Hertz, so that's 60 frames per second in 4K. Your output resolution is going to be 1920 by 1080 and 60 Hertz, which is 1080, 60 frames per second. And your recorded resolution will be 1080 at 60 frames per second. Now, the surprising thing here is the only way to get a 4K recording is if you've got an input resolution of 3840 by 2160 and 30 Hertz. Then your output resolution will be 3840 by 2160 and 30 Hertz. And your recorded resolution will be 3840 by 2160 and 30 Hertz, meaning all the way along 4K input, 4K output, and a 4K recording, all in 30 frames per second. Now, I'm a little bit surprised by that, and in one way disappointed, because it would have been nice if you could input a higher resolution, 60 frames per second or even 120 frames per second, and get a recording in 4K. If it could have done that, I would have been really impressed. But the input has to be controlled, so you can't have it going above 30 frames per second if you want to capture 4K on this. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind if you are purchasing this. So I've turned on my PlayStation 5 and I'm getting a message saying, please scan QR. And this is just a temporary situation where if you get this message on the box itself, you just got to hold on to the button which says H.265, H.264. So if you just hold on to that for about 5 to 10 seconds, and there you go, display's appeared. So there you go, simple as that to get up and running with the unit. And as I've already mentioned, you can see for yourself, the side panel with all the details is gone now. And to get in there, if I click display on the remote, you can see those details at the side. Now I've got Fortnite running here on the PlayStation 5, and picture quality wise it's great, and the voice you're hearing, my one at the moment, that's the mic quality to expect if you plugged in an external microphone. So you've seen the sample footage from the PlayStation 5 playing Fortnite, and you've seen for yourself picture quality was really good on there, and I love the fact that you can plug in an external microphone and overlay audio over the gaming footage. So you don't have to mess around at a later stage sort of getting that converted from another source. Now, one surprising thing about the device is that you can record any type of input without any sort of restrictions. So I've tried playing a Blu-ray disc on my PlayStation 5, and it worked, and it allowed it to record without any issues. And one bonus about that is it could actually record at 4K 30 frames per second, because the frames per second on the Blu-ray disc was 25. So really impressed that you could do that. And I even tested out plugging in my 4K Fire Stick and playing something off Netflix, and even that can be recorded offline. So really impressed with this functionality. But just to note, I don't suggest buying this device to copy movies and TV shows. That's illegal. Let's move on to the Flint 4KP Pro unit. So for this one, you just need to connect up a source, so an input source. Output would go to your TV, and then you'd take the Type-C connection cable, plug that into it, and the other end would plug into your PC. Just ensure your PC's got a USB 3 connection on there. And on your PC, you just need 2 pieces of software which they offer. So once you've registered the device, you'll be given a download link. Just download and install, and these are the 2 pieces of software you get. It's an MP4 Cloner, and if I start that up, and this piece of software lets you trim videos, combine videos together, convert them, and then burn them onto DVD. It's a very simplistic bit of software and a useful one to have. Next, you've got the ClonerAlliance helper, and this is the main bit of software for this. And there you go, you can see my input on this straight away. So I've got my PS5 connected to it. And if you look at the video capture device, you can see it there. And then looking in settings, this is the key thing about this device. So there's no restriction with this one. The input doesn't have to be at 30 frames per second. As long as you've got a 4K input going in, you can get it recording at 4K. So at the moment, my PlayStation's at 60 frames per second, and this will allow me to record 4K at 30 frames per second. So it has a big advantage over the other unit. Now coming out of there, coming onto audio capture device, this is what you have available. You don't have to capture the audio on the HDMI. You could flip it over to your microphone like this. Let's flip it back again. Then you've got an option for recording schedule. So you can set timers, and these are the sort of options you have available. You can have a one-off recording or have it happening regularly. Then we have the record button. You can hit F2 to initiate a record, and then all recorded files, so all the recordings you have are visible there. You can take a snapshot from here. You can create a GIF with this as well. You can just leave it running and then hit the stop. It's recorded a GIF for you. Then you can do a live broadcast with this, and you've got settings option. So these are the options you have available. So looking in here, you've got general, and then you've got preview, details in here, record. This is probably the most significant one to look at. So with this one, video resolution, same to the device. FPS, same to the device, is set on there as well. Bitrate, so at the moment it's 18. And you can see the file size from that. If I take that down to 10, you can see a reduction. And obviously that would be a reduction in quality as well. Format, so you can see here with MP4 on this one, you can have variable frames per second, but if you want a constant one, you'd pick this one. And then your video codec, you can amend it here. Okay, codec speed, location where it's going to capture to. You can just even say if you want the file to be split as well. So if I drop this down, it can be in 4 to 1 gig chunks. You've got hotkeys as well to initiate record and even pause. And then coming over to image, details for image captures, change the resolution on GIFs as well. Live, this is the live streaming resolution and VBS details here. And coming out of that, then you've got volume adjustment. So you can reduce the volume. So I can hear it on my headset now, it's been reduced. You can maximize the window as well. You've got an option here, additional options available, and then you've got the live option here to live stream. And that's it, that's all the options you have available here. So I've started up Fortnite on my PlayStation 5, and you can see smaller window obviously on the screen. You can maximize it, which is good. So if I right click, you've got a full screen option there. If I press escape on my keyboard, it comes back again. And if I hit record, it'll start recording. And again, in terms of performance on my computer, not seeing any sort of issues there, not struggling in any way. Performance seems very good. And now if I flip over to the actual recording that's happening at the moment, what you're hearing now is obviously my voice speaking through the microphone connected to the unit. And this is the advantage to it, so you don't have to do any extra audio mixing on here. Because it has a microphone connection point, you can record straight onto it. So really good. And I like the fact that without messing around, or having that restriction like the other one does, where you have to have an input of 30 frames per second at 4K. This doesn't have that,
So with my input being at 60 frames per second from the PlayStation 5, I can still record in 4K, which is really good.
As with the other device, there's no restrictions on here. So I've got a Blu-ray playing now on my PlayStation 5. And again, it's not restricting me in any way. So it's not even limited, like I've said, to Blu-rays. It's any source it'll accept and let you record, which is really impressive. And now I've got my Fire Stick plugged in. And if I play anything off here, it will just allow me to play it and record it. So surprised again and impressed the fact you can do that and record anything you want. Now, if you took the standalone device and plugged that into your PC via the USB-A to micro USB cable, that's going to allow you to do a capture on your PC as well, but you're going to be restricted in terms of resolution. And again, it won't let you do 4K. So if I go to settings here, drop this down, you can see for yourself, it's not available. So you've got all the other functionality. You can use the software to amend and edit your video. This is the MP4 Cloner Software. So this software is available with this unit as well. And using the main one here, you've got all the functionality available in here. So it's a dual purpose device then. You can work standalone or you can have it working with your PC. But again, limited, you can't do 4K 30 frames per second, unlike the other one. So in summary, I'm really impressed with these capture devices. The captured footage quality is good on both of them. It's nice they allow you to connect up a microphone on this. You don't need to mix in your audio footage from your microphone later on. It can be done all in one go. It's quite interesting that they allowed you to record any source on there without any restriction. I was surprised at that. I didn't think they'd allow that, but you saw for yourself. You could just record a Blu-ray disc on there if you wanted to. Not that I'm suggesting you do that, but like I said, it is interesting seeing it working. Now, if I had to choose between the two of them, personally, I'd go for the Flint 4KP Pro. I know you need a PC for this, but this one allows you to record 4K at 30 frames per second on the next gen consoles, where the other unit didn't allow that. That one required the source input to be 4K 30 frames per second, and that's just not possible on the next gen consoles, even though the advantage of that unit is you don't need a PC with it. So a little bit of a shame with that. So negatives wise, it would have been great if the standalone unit could record next gen consoles at 4K 30 frames per second, and topping that would have been amazing if it could handle 120 frames per second. Can you imagine the footage you get from the next gen consoles? Absolutely amazing. So there you go. I hope this video's helped anyone thinking of purchasing these. Details are in the description below, including purchasing links. Hang around for the end cards. There'll be a playlist with gaming related videos. I hope you can smash that like button on this video, as it really does help the channel out. Thanks for viewing, and see you in the next one.